It was an unremarkable Monday afternoon when my husband, Alex, unexpectedly unleashed a revelation that would shatter the calm. He received the call that would change everything: a week-long business trip overseas. The weight of solitude settled heavily upon me as I faced the haunting prospect of being alone in the house for the first time in years. A wave of anxiety crashed over me at the thought of facing the solitude for that long, even though I understood it was part of his job. Alex forced a smile, hurriedly packed his bags, and with a shaky voice, promised me he would check in every night. He pressed his lips gently to my forehead, a fleeting moment of warmth, before turning away and waving, leaving an aching silence in his wake. Once he was gone, the house descended into an unsettling silence, a hollow emptiness that made it feel as if it had been stripped of its very essence, as if it no longer belonged to me. I sought to drown out the oppressive silence, immersing myself in relentless work, losing myself in the gripping narratives of my favorite shows, and wandering the desolate streets of the neighborhood for what felt like an eternity. The first 2 days unfolded with an unsettling calm, but as the third evening descended, an ominous shift loomed in the air. As I huddled on the couch, clutching a cup of tea, desperately seeking solace in the pages of a book, the sudden chime of the doorbell shattered the fragile calm. Suddenly, the unexpected presence sent a jolt of unease coursing through me, intertwining with a surge of curiosity that left my heart racing. As I swung the door open, there he was, Ryan, Alex's best friend, standing there like a storm waiting to break. He clutched a bottle of wine in one hand, his smile lingering with an unsettling familiarity masking the storm brewing beneath the surface. "Hey, Emma," he uttered, his voice laced with an unsettling calm. "I found myself nearby and felt an overwhelming urge to check in on you, to see how you're holding up." Alex spoke of his trip, and I sensed you could use some company. I chuckled uneasily, my heart racing as I stepped aside to allow him entry. "Your actions were unnecessary, yet here we are, and it's a pleasure to see you again." Ryan and Alex had forged an unbreakable bond since their college days, their friendship steeped in a tapestry of shared experiences and unwavering loyalty. My connection with Ryan stretched back nearly as far as my bond with Alex, yet we had rarely found ourselves in each other's company, alone and unguarded. It was always the three of us, or a tumultuous crowd surrounding us. He was woven into the fabric of our lives, an ever-present shadow, yet I had never truly contemplated the depths of his existence beyond being Alex's closest companion. We gathered in the living room, the tension palpable as we poured the wine, each sip a moment to reflect on the weight of our lives. We delved into the intricacies of work, the tangled web of our mutual friends, and the challenges Alex faced as he navigated the tumultuous waters of his trip. Words danced between us, and suddenly, I found myself laughing harder than I had in what felt like an eternity. Ryan had a way of casting a spell over the room, and that night, a revelation struck me with the force of a thunderclap. I had never truly seen the depth of his charm and the sincerity of his kindness. As the evening deepened, an undeniable tension began to weave itself between us. Ryan's gaze was intense, every fiber of his being drawn into my words, as if the weight of the world rested on the moment we shared. A wave of exhilaration washed over me, invigorating my very soul. It had been ages since I experienced a connection like this, one that stirred something deep within me. In a fleeting moment, I caught his gaze, holding on to me with an intensity that felt heavier than before. It wasn't inappropriate, yet it pulsed with an undeniable tension, thick with unspoken words that hung in the air. An unspoken tension hung heavily between us, palpable and undeniable as it quietly seeped into the atmosphere, thickening the silence. I tried to dismiss the sensation, convincing myself it was merely the wine, the aching solitude of being apart from Alex, or perhaps just a figment of my imagination. After all, Ryan stood as Alex's closest confidant while I held the title of Alex's wife. There was no reason to delve deeper into anything. I made my exit, citing the late hour, and Ryan's smile lingered, his gratitude for my presence hanging in the air between us. As the door clicked shut, an unsettling sensation coiled tightly in the depths of my stomach. A palpable change hung in the air, elusive yet undeniable, leaving me in a state of restless uncertainty. The following morning, I awoke with a gnawing sense of unease gripping my chest. The evening with Ryan lingered in my thoughts, haunting me far more than it ought to have. I tried to convince myself it was trivial, merely a consequence of having company after enduring a stretch of solitude. Yet, as the minutes dragged on, an unsettling sensation gripped me, whispering that something was irrevocably different. A strange undercurrent pulsed through our conversation, one I had failed to recognize in the moment, yet now it loomed large, impossible to dismiss. I attempted to immerse myself in work, yet my mind relentlessly wandered back to Ryan and the overwhelming emotions that surged within me whenever he was near. As the afternoon waned, the weight of unease grew unbearable. I grasped the phone tightly, dialing my best friend Sophie, the only soul who would hear me out without a hint of judgment. "Ryan showed up last night," I said, struggling to maintain a nonchalant tone. "Ryan? Is that really Alex's friend? What is the purpose of this?" Sophie inquired, her voice laced with an urgent curiosity. "I suppose I'm just reaching out to see how things are going." We poured the wine, and the conversation flowed, each word heavy with unspoken truths. It was nice, yet a storm brewed within me as I hesitated, grappling with the weight of my unspoken feelings. "But what is happening?" she pressed, her determination palpable in the air. A heavy sigh escaped my lips. A moment hung in the air, charged with unspoken words and palpable uncertainty. Words failed to capture the depth of it. It was nothing, yet it resonated as if it were everything. Sophie fell into a heavy silence, the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air. "And what did he do, precisely?" "Nothing," I shot back, my voice barely above a whisper. "That's the crux of it all. It was nothing in particular, yet it loomed large, casting a shadow over everything. It was an overwhelming sensation, a pulse of something deeper. It was as if we shared a secret, a forbidden knowledge that hung heavily between us." "Perhaps it was merely the wine that spoke," Sophie suggested, her voice laced with uncertainty. "It seems you're caught in a whirlwind of thoughts." "Perhaps," I murmured, though doubt gnawed at my insides. The remainder of the day slipped away in a haze, each moment heavy with unspoken weight. No matter how hard I tried to push the conversation away, Ryan lingered in every shadow of my mind, an unrelenting presence that refused to fade. It was utterly absurd, a reality so twisted that it defied belief. I convinced myself he was merely being a good friend. There was no need to escalate the situation beyond reason. Later that evening, as I settled in for dinner, my phone suddenly buzzed, jolting me with a message from Ryan. "Last night was an unforgettable experience, filled with moments that stirred the soul. I hope I didn't linger too long." I fixated on the message, my heart pounding with an intensity that left me breathless and bewildered. After wrestling with my thoughts, I crafted several replies, each one more complex than the last, before finally choosing a response that was stark in its simplicity. "Absolutely not." The presence of company brought a warmth that was both comforting and stirring. A few minutes later, a new message arrived, shrouded in uncertainty. "I'm relieved to hear that. I was considering coming by again tomorrow if you have the time. There's absolutely no pressure, naturally." I paused, a tumultuous blend of anticipation and guilt churning within me. A part of me screamed to refuse, to escape the inevitable storm brewing before us. Yet, a different part of me, the one that had been shrouded in loneliness and disconnection for days, felt an undeniable pull. I told myself that nothing would happen, but a nagging doubt lingered in the air. What began as a simple, friendly visit quickly spiraled into something far more complex. "Absolutely, tomorrow it is," I responded impulsively, my mind racing with unspoken thoughts. The following day unfolded in a whirlwind of anxious anticipation. As I reflected on Ryan's impending visit, a tumultuous blend of exhilaration and foreboding washed over me. Was I unwittingly stepping into a storm I couldn't contain, or was it merely a tempest of my own making? That evening, when Ryan arrived once more, he brought takeout and we sat down at the kitchen table, sharing a meal, a ritual we had performed countless times before, yet this time felt different, charged with an unspoken weight. Yet, this time, the strain between us was palpable. Every laugh, every glance crackled with intensity, a palpable awareness of the unspoken bond that tethered us together, yet we remained paralyzed by fear, unable to confront the truth that lingered in the air. As the evening deepened, an undeniable pull towards Ryan enveloped me, igniting a thrilling mix of exhilaration and dread within my chest. There was a familiarity between us that wrapped around me like a warm embrace, yet beneath it lurked an unsettling danger. I found myself lost in thought, imagining a world where everything was altered, where we weren't bound by the ties that connect us to others. In a moment of reckless honesty, I found myself asking, "Ryan, do you ever contemplate the possibilities if we were free from all our ties to others?" His gaze met mine, a flicker of surprise dancing in his eyes, yet the shock remained just out of reach. Silence hung heavily in the air before he finally spoke, his voice low yet resolute. I can't shake it from my mind, no matter how hard I try. My heart raced violently within my chest. The unexpected response struck me with a force I couldn't have anticipated, and the weight of the situation crashed down upon me, leaving me breathless. I'm sorry, I stammered, a crushing wave of guilt crashing over me, suffocating my words. What have I done? I shouldn't have said that. Ryan's head trembled in disbelief. No, please don't apologize. I felt it too, but I can't bear the thought of ruining anything. You and Alex? What's going on between you two? That is profoundly sacred. His words lingered, thick with the unspoken emotions that bound us together in that moment. I nodded, a heavy weight of realization pressing down on me, enveloping the moment in an intense stillness. Yes, I breathed softly. My heart belongs to Alex. I know, Ryan said, his voice barely above a whisper laden with unspoken weight. I respect that, but it's hard being around you sometimes. The tension hung thick in the air, a palpable reminder of the distance between them. For what felt like an eternity, we remained in silence, each of us grappling with the weight of the unfolding reality. We had confronted a truth that lingered in the shadows, a truth neither of us dared to voice, and now the path behind us had vanished. The boundary that once defined our friendship had begun to dissolve, and we teetered on the edge of a perilous leap into the unknown. Ryan shot up, his hand raking through his hair in a frantic gesture. I need to leave before we cross a line that can never be undone. I nodded, words caught in my throat, and my heart raced as I watched him step through the door, the finality of the moment hanging heavy in the air. The house loomed larger in its emptiness, a hollow shell echoing the tumult of emotions that churned violently within me. The morning following Ryan's second visit, I awoke to a tumultuous blend of relief and an unsettling dread that clung to me like a shadow. On one hand, a sense of relief washed over me, knowing we had managed to regain our clarity just in time before chaos threatened to engulf us. Yet, I found myself unable to shake off the weight of our conversation, the way we had danced on the edge of a precipice, teetering on the brink of an act that could shatter everything we held dear. Alex called later that morning, his voice a comforting echo of the past, yet the guilt clawed at my insides, relentless and unforgiving. He recounted his trip, expressing how deeply he missed me, and I struggled to reply with a semblance of normalcy, yet it felt as though I was caught between two conflicting realities. One where I was Alex's devoted wife, and another where Ryan had awakened feelings within me that I was unprepared to face. As the night deepened, I found myself compelled to reach out to Ryan. I had to ensure that everything remained calm and unchanged between us, that we hadn't ventured into any territory that could never be reclaimed. Hey, I said, my voice trembling as he answered. I need to know if we're all right after everything that happened last night. A heavy silence hung in the air. Yeah, we're fine, he said, but the weight in his voice betrayed a deeper turmoil beneath the surface. Are you truly certain? I can't bear the thought of things becoming awkward between us. I insisted, my voice trembling with urgency. Ryan let out a heavy sigh, the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air. Listen, this isn't just a casual matter. We must tread carefully. This is no ordinary situation. It's fraught with peril. In that moment, the weight of his words crashed down on me, undeniable and heavy. I completely understand. The last thing I want is to jeopardize anything. Neither do I, Ryan said, his voice heavy with unspoken thoughts, but it's impossible to overlook. Once the call ended, an unsettling wave of finality washed over me. It was the right decision, yet it felt like a hollow triumph echoing with unspoken doubts. A profound change had settled between us, sealing our fate irrevocably. The following days unfolded in a whirlwind of emotions that overwhelmed me, leaving me struggling to make sense of it all. I immersed myself in work, desperately attempting to escape the palpable tension that hung between Ryan and me, yet it clung to the edges of my thoughts, refusing to be ignored. With Alex's return looming just days away, I felt an urgent need to bury the past, to erase every trace of what had happened before he stepped back into my life. Yet, just one day before Alex returned, a message from Ryan pierced through the silence. We need to talk. My heart plummeted. Despite knowing the consequences, an undeniable urge pulled at me, compelling me to reply. Unspoken words lingered in the air, heavy with unresolved tension. Sure, I typed back, my stomach twisting in a knot of anxiety. That fateful evening, Ryan returned once more. We sat on the couch, an unspoken chasm between us, the heavy remnants of our last conversation lingering in the air, suffocating and unresolved. I'm sorry, Ryan said at last, shattering the heavy silence that hung between them. Regret washes over me, reaching out to you was a mistake. I've been battling with the weight of it all, feeling utterly lost and desperate for a way out. I shook my head, a storm of emotions swirling within me. This isn't solely on you, we both allowed this to spiral beyond our control. Ryan's head dipped in a solemn acknowledgement. I understand, yet the truth is, you consume my thoughts, and therein lies the turmoil. I wish I could escape this feeling, yet here I am, trapped in its grip. I choked back a surge of emotions, each one clawing to break free. We can't go on like this, Ryan. It feels utterly unjust to Alex and to all of us caught in this turmoil. You're right, he murmured, the weight of his words hanging heavily in the air, but it doesn't make it any easier. In that fleeting moment, silence enveloped us, the magnetic pull between us impossible to ignore. I was acutely aware that once we stepped over that threshold, there would be no return. The allure was undeniable, yet I found myself resisting the pull. I can't, I murmured, my voice barely escaping my lips. My heart aches for Alex, and the thought of causing him pain is unbearable. Ryan rose to his feet, his face a mask of gravity, tinged with an air of reluctant acceptance. I understand, and I hold that in high regard. I shook my head, a wave of disbelief crashing over me. This isn't solely on you, we both allowed this to spiral beyond our control. Ryan's head dipped in a slow, deliberate nod, the weight of unspoken words hanging heavily in the air. I understand, yet the truth is, you occupy my thoughts relentlessly, and therein lies the dilemma. I wish I could escape this feeling, yet here I am, trapped in its grip. I choked back a wave of emotions, each one threatening to spill over and consume me. We can't go on like this, Ryan. It feels utterly unjust to Alex and to all of us caught in this turmoil. You're right, he murmured, the weight of his words hanging heavily in the air, yet it does nothing to lessen the burden. In that fleeting moment, silence enveloped us, the magnetic pull between us impossible to ignore. I was acutely aware that once we stepped over that threshold, there would be no return. The allure loomed large, yet I found myself unable to surrender. I can't. I breathed, my voice barely escaping my lips. My heart aches for Alex, and the thought of causing him pain is unbearable. Ryan rose to his feet, his face a mask of gravity, tinged with an air of acceptance. I understand, and I hold that in high regard. He lingered at the threshold, casting a final, lingering glance in my direction. As much as it pains me to say this, my feelings for you run deep, yet I refuse to be the catalyst that shatters your marriage. And in that moment, he vanished into thin air. As Alex stepped through the door the following day, I wrapped my arms around him, clinging desperately, battling the storm of uncertainty swirling within me, desperately trying to convince myself that all was well. Yet, beneath the surface, I felt an undeniable change within me, a haunting realization that no matter how hard I fought against it, I could never erase the shadow of what had nearly transpired. Ryan and I chose to bury the memory, never uttering a word about it again. We faded into the shadows of each other's existence, yet the silent bond we once held lingered, an indelible imprint that would haunt us both forever. As the door slammed shut behind Ryan, a weight settled in my chest, the realization dawning that we had teetered on the brink of an irrevocable decision. I had made my choice in marriage, yet it lingered in the air, a bittersweet echo of an incomplete triumph. The emotions ignited within me carved a deep wound, one that would linger long after the moment had passed. At times, the walls we believe are unyielding can crumble beneath the burden of unexpressed emotions. But is merely staying on the right side of that line truly sufficient to uphold the trust and love that form the very foundation of a relationship? What would you have done if you were in my position? Would you dare to cross that line, or will you hold steadfast to your commitment? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I eagerly await your insights on this intricate and challenging predicament. And remember to subscribe for more gripping tales like this.